This is my Project Bin, the series where I go over every single update that I've had just off camera and in general with new models, stuff I've been working on, and things I've been getting rid of, and other generalized updates. So let's get into it. To start, I have an update with my actual Project Bin. All of these boxes are new. If any of you remember, for the past probably 2 years or so, I've had this one cardboard banker's box, and before that I had a variety of other small boxes for my projects. Recently, I was given all these for free by another member of the club I'm part of, and I've just decided to use them. I had a whole bunch for my actual physical stuff that I'm keeping, and this one I've decided I'm dedicating these few boxes to my actual projects. Some of the stuff, like these branch line kits off to the side, are displaced because I'm using one of these boxes to hold the stuff I'm filming in this video, and these few boxes on the right, this is all just stuff that I'm getting rid of, so they'll be open for more projects in the future. Now I have a pretty major update. It isn't actually about a model, it's about the channel itself, and that I am changing these channels' name as of the day that this video is getting released, if I don't forget. So I am changing the name to Colby's Project Bin, the same as the series, because I think it better fits the type of stuff that I do. It'll be the exact same sorts of thing, I just think it'll be a lot easier for people to find it, and it'll have a better connection to trains and whatnot. So hopefully in the long run it helps, and I believe it'll be a much more clear name to talk about with people in general too, so it might make it a bit less awkward. Alright, on to some of the models, and just for the record, a lot of this will be stuff from that recent free lot that I got, which did really well for me, but I do have just a few general pieces from that. A lot of it is the rolling stock and a few other engine updates. First up with the rolling stock is some that you've actually probably seen already in another video, which is this log crane and this log car. This was a crane that came in that whole lot, and I replaced the logs on this car with the crane, and I actually really like it. It's a really cool piece, and a lot of people at the club I'm part of seem to like it. And this is just a log car with Katie's and metal wheels, which were the same upgrades that this thing also got. So now I've got even more to expand my logging train, and I think that brings my train up to a length of about 13 cars, which is a pretty decent sized logging train. Next up are two more updates from that lot, and I'm putting these as kind of a 2-for-1 because they are very similar. These are both the lifelike diesels that came in that free lot, and both of these I've just done a very basic amount of work to. All I've done really is just given them a little bit of fresh oil, I think just on the motor bearings, and I believe the rear truck bearings, and other than that I've done nothing to them. This one I changed the shell out on though, and I put a new horn on here because I had another lifelike Union Pacific F40 in worse shape, so I combined the two and made the best one that I could. So both of these engines are now in their done state, and I actually really like them. Now for an update that's been in my collection for quite a long time, surprisingly, is this one Tropicana boxcar. This is a Concours kit that I built years ago and has gotten pretty beat up, and recently I've actually done some work to it and might start using it again. I was considering selling the thing, but all I've done recently is I put some new couplers on it, and I also upgraded the coupler heights and whatnot. So this thing might be in some trains in the near future, but I don't know how long I'll be holding on to the thing for. Next up is another freight car from that lot. This one I'm not actually completely done with yet, but this is the Reading Beeline car. I have actually upgraded the trucks themselves. I put on some, I believe, some coupler, not coupler height, just some general Katie washers, and I added some new Katie couplers on here. I would like to dull coat this car, because if you can tell, it's rather shiny, but other than that, this car runs pretty well, and it's a fairly decent piece of rolling stock. Next up, we have a very nice addition that is hopefully going to stay as an addition, and I'll bring the tender up here. This is an intermountain cab forward, and this, if I can do exactly what I'm planning on doing, will end up being a free engine for me. So basically, another member of the club I'm part of got this thing recently, and just did not have fun with the wiring of this thing, and I believe it has a bad decoder currently, and all he wanted to do was turn this thing into like a display of some sort of locomotive on our club layout, and said that if I could get it running with DCC again, it would just be mine, in exchange if I gave him my old Rivarossi cab forward. So if I don't get this thing working, it's going back and it'll just be a display. And if I do get it working, I'll have this as a new DCC engine, and I'll be able to get rid of my old Rivarossi engine and sort of donate it to a museum, which will be nice. So I'm hoping that in the near future, I can completely rewire this engine and we can put in a new DCC sound decoder and a good speaker. Next up, I have a new piece of rolling stock, which is kind of interesting. It's not the most wild thing out there, but this is, I believe, an old AHM car that's actually been upgraded a little bit. It's actually got some fairly decent trucks. It looks like it has an upgraded chassis. And other than that, I've added some new Cadies onto the thing just because I had some laying around and some washers, and the thing's actually really nice. It's got some really good weight, and while it's not the highest detailed thing in the world, it is a pretty nice looking car. So hopefully when I get the cab forward done, this will be a nice oddball piece to put behind it. Next up, I have another engine update, or well, lack thereof of an engine. This was the remains of my Tyco Illinois Central C630, not the one I restored on the channel, but the other one I got in a lot recently. I was contemplating between parting the thing out and actually trying to repair it, and I decided it would be much more useful and more time efficient for me to part the thing out and use it for other stuff. So all that's really left as a major component is this weight, which I plan on putting in one of my Mantua F7s, which I believe needs this style of weight, which will mean hopefully I can get rid of the really oddball like wheel weight upgrade that I have to that thing. So hopefully it'll be much more complete of an engine with this new part in the near future. Next up, I have another really nice locomotive, my brass PA, which I've actually completed the first one of. This one was quite the hassle to figure out, but after a lot of trial, error, rewiring, and all that, I've actually gotten this thing on the old chassis to fit into the nicer of my two PA shells. I've installed DCC and sound, and I still need to program the sound, but everything works as it should now. It had a bad axle and a whole bunch of other little issues that I've been working out. My second one, I've discovered, with the parts I have, will actually have some sort of E-unit truck at the front, which is not the greatest, but to be fair, it was a free brass engine that I just want to get working, and if I can get that thing working even with that E-unit truck, it'll still be an amazing looking engine. So it'll be a little bit off, but I want to have this pair done, hopefully before the end of the year. Next up, I have another Bachmann piece of rolling stock that I've upgraded. This time, it's this Union Pacific High Cube. This one, I've just basically put some new Cadies on it, and I think I also put some more of those Cadie washers on here. I need to order more of those washers in the near future, along with a whole bunch of other parts. So I'll have a whole new order of stuff coming in soon, but for now, I'm just working with what I got, and I've been fixing up some of this new equipment that I've got. And this car is actually pretty nice. I have an old Lionel HO car, a Rock Island one, that goes really well with this thing. So I put the two together on a few trains before, and they actually look pretty nice together, and they work well. So both of them are pretty nice cars, even for being kind of outdated. Next up, we have another locomotive I was given for free by a good friend of mine, whose channel I will attempt to remember to put in the description. But this was a speeder. It's a Bachmann one. It's actually a powered unit. This was an engine that he donated to the club I'm part of a while ago, just as a display piece that never got used, and he offered it to me for free just because I had some interest in it and had a use for it. I want to try and put DCC in this thing at some point, which will be a tall order, but I'd like to figure out how to do it at some point. So I'd like this thing, again, to be a DCC engine, and it's a really nice free thing. I've always really liked speeders. I've actually ridden in a few before, and it's just a really neat piece to have. Next up, I have some more rolling stock to go over. The first of which being another Bachmann car. This one is the depressed center flat car with the missile on it. It's still such a really weird looking piece. I don't know why Bachmann sold a car with a missile on it, but apparently they did. It's just odd. And again, what I've done is I've actually put some fresh Cadies on here, and I've also upgraded the coupler height, or not coupler height, the truck height, just to match the couplers. And this thing actually runs really well. I've run it on kind of some ridiculous consists. I need to find an actual good use for this thing where it would fit in, or get rid of it at some point. But I don't know, it's a really odd car, and I don't know if it's funny enough for me to keep it, or if it's ridiculous enough for me to get rid of it. Before we go further into the video, I thought I'd show you all three engines that are DC, which I talked about running. First off, here is the Bachmann Speeder. It's a little stuttery because this thing hasn't been run in a considerable amount of time, but this thing does in fact run. Let me give it a little push. If it'll stay on the track. These cars are really light too. But ultimately, this thing will need a wheel cleaning, and probably just a good time to run in, because it's been sitting for over a year at this point. Next up, here's the F7, which I have not tested in a couple of days prior to this, so I'll give this thing some power. It might need a little tap. This one's still not perfect, but it does run significantly quieter than it did when I got it. And finally, we have the Union Pacific F40, and this one was a considerable transformation. This thing runs really smoothly, has a lot of power, and it will be a good engine in the long run. All right, and the last two pieces for this update go together. This is the first part of it, and here's the second part. This is a Bachmann Santa Fe crane. It looks like I'm going to need to do a little bit of tensioning here because something has certainly gone off on this sort of the end of things. So it's got to get some like tightening or something done with these cables. But what I've done with this is I actually put Katie's on these, and that was a rather difficult task, trying to get washers to the correct height and all that. It took probably 2 hours to get the set properly matched, but now it runs really well, and it's a pretty nice looking set for being Bachmann. So, I believe that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you like the new name. If you have any new suggestions for a profile picture, please let me know. But with all that, thanks for watching.